Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Tales from the Fandom. It is the month of March, and we are 2 days away from Moon Knight releasing. And I have a special guest back with me today, Brady Calhoun, who has done a lot of my Marvel stuff with me over the past many years, is back, and we're going to talk about the year that was Marvel 2021 and what's coming up this year in 2022. How you doing, Brady?
Man, I'm excited. I'm in the future already, and Moon Knight's about to come out. That's awesome, man.
It is, and it works out so well. Like, I didn't plan it this way,
Mhm.
but I didn't even realize that Moon Knight was like the first one on deck as far as like shows that were coming on Disney Plus. But here it is. So
What what impresses me about you is how far in advance you're scheduled. I mean, I don't want to trade any secrets, but it's still January here in podcast land, and apparently this is going to drop in March. And you are just the man. You must have just
that
have a
that
ton of people beating down your door like me, saying, "Hey, let me on, let me on."
listen, the goal is to make it easy on me for editing and working and family and everything else balanced. So it is what it is, but I'm excited. We're gonna talk because last time we talked, Brady,
Uh
we
huh.
talked about Avengers Endgame, and we were talking about 2020. We're gonna talk about what's going to happen. We're talking about how are we going to balance watching movies and all the Disney Plus stuff that had been announced at the time.
What a great year in Marvel it was going 2020 was going to be. It was going to be amazing, right?
It was going. It was like we have all this stuff to look forward to, like, and then there was a pause button on 2020 for Marvel.
it's almost like a supervillain attacked the world, and unlike in the Marvel movies, nobody beat him. He just took the whole year from us. And here it is 2022, and we did get ultimately, thankfully, our for those of us who love this stuff, we got our Marvel on in 2021, right?
Yeah, that was, it was a lot because everything kept getting pushed back, and then the TV shows started coming out. It's like, okay, I start feeling better. I start feeling okay about things, and I'm like, all right, I got it. Like, I didn't see of all the movies last year that Marvel put out, the only one I saw in the movie theater was Spider-Man: No Way Home, because we were able to rent an entire movie theater to go see it.
Oh, that's
Uh,
cool.
Otherwise, is like I can't be around people no matter how much I want to. I just
Yeah.
can't. But I have seen all the movies that came out last year, and I've seen all the shows. So I think we're good. And you have done the same, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah, I have seen all of the, as is um, my own personal craziness. As I've said before, I'm getting through life. It used to be one Marvel movie at a time, and now I'm getting through life sort of one Marvel project at a time, um, because I love this stuff and I have so much fun watching it. And of course, I grew up on the comics, and seeing that stuff come to life really means a lot to me um, in a very weird way. I find it very comforting sometimes in otherwise what would otherwise be really dark times to have what I think are usually pretty fun and positive movies and TV shows to watch. So I enjoy these things a lot. Um, I know that there are a lot of folks who don't, and a lot of them make movies and they're forced to answer questions about why they what they think about Marvel movies. And I always think that question's like, what do we? The machine is going to continue making Marvel movies until they don't make money anymore. That's the way the machine works, and it doesn't really matter what anybody thinks about it. You know what I mean? The machine. We're all watching, Book of Boba Fett right now, right? And like the machine's going to keep making Star Wars stuff until there's no more money to be made. So either, I'm sorry that if you love it, I'm happy for you. If you don't love it, that's okay. There's, you know there's like the Gilded Age on HBO for you guys, right? I mean, there's stuff. So
Exactly.
but anyway,
As somebody that talks about fandoms with people for every couple weeks or so, that's one of the things I've learned is like the stuff that they like I might not like, but that's okay. I've got the other stuff. There's plenty of stuff. There's too much stuff for me to watch right now. Like I think I've got 5 or 6 shows that I cannot get to because I'm watching other stuff.
and I mean, I consume a ton because I have kids, and so I sort of have stuff playing for them on the TV, and I get to watch stuff on my iPad with headphones in while they're running wild through my house or whatever. And so I consume a ton of stuff. And like my answer is always, oh, I don't like this. I'm not watching any more of that.
Yep.
Like it wasn't for me, but it's not to like, of course, no one would care what I think anyway, but it certainly wouldn't be, if anybody asked me what I thought of a movie or a stream of movies or whatever, what's the, oh gosh, what's that show that's been on for like Grey's Anatomy? I've never seen a Grey's Anatomy. It may be wonderful, you know what I mean? But I would never be like, they're making too much Grey's Anatomy and it's drowning out, all the everything else out there. The Chicago Fire and Chicago PD shows. My mother-in-law watches those, and occasionally I see them on I'm just like, that's not for me. Like people enjoy it. I'm glad they enjoy it. But it ain't me. And that's okay. Like people can have their stuff. Anyway,
Exactly.
we went on a real tangent there. So
All
I
right.
guess I'm a little bitter. I don't know. Well, it's fine.
All right, so we're for everyone listening, we're going to break it up into we're going to talk about movies first, both the 2021 releases that came out last year and then the stuff that's on deck for this year. And then we're going to skip to after that, we're going to talk about the Disney Plus shows that were on 2021 and the stuff that we're expecting to come out this year. And then at the end we'll talk about like, future Marvel projects and what might be in the pipeline, because there's a ton of stuff. Let's not
Sure.
be wrong or quiet about that. There's so much. We're gonna kick things off. The first Marvel movie that came out 2021 was one that was long overdue, and that was Black Widow.
That is a movie that came out in 2021, and I went to the theater. I think I was probably vaccinated by then and felt invulnerable, and I really enjoyed it for what it was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think that it was. I didn't think it was the greatest Marvel movie I'd ever seen. I didn't think it was the greatest movie I'd ever seen. I didn't necessarily think it was bad. It sort of existed. There's a bunch of Marvel movies that exist in this sort of mid-level, everybody should leave the theater mostly happy
Mm-hmm.
experience. And that's what that one was for me. I think my real only bone of contention with the movie was not. And by the way, we're spoiling everything, right? Like I don't have to worry about
spoiling everything. Go forth.
All right. So my only real bone of contention with that movie is that they made it too late. That should have been. It's in. If you don't know, you know now. In the timeline, it's right after Civil War, and so she goes on this side quest adventure with her original weird Russian spy family, and it's a pretty good Black Widow adventure, right? Like I enjoyed most of it, but the whole time I'm watching it, all I can think is, why didn't they make this right after Civil War? And of course by now we know she's dead. And in the MCU, at least so far, dead usually means dead. They're probably not bringing her back. They wanted to give her movie for a lot of different reasons, and I think ScarJo deserved a movie by herself, and she just deserved it so much earlier than she got it. And there are a lot of weird, I don't know. I'm not behind. No, Kevin Feige doesn't call me. I don't know why this one took as long as it did. There's always been this. There was these other guys who were in charge at Marvel and that didn't believe in a female-driven superhero movie, and that's why this one was so late. And I think that was a pretty terrible mistake on their part, because this was a pretty good movie, and it would have been even better if it come out when it was supposed to come out, or when it is in the timeline. And maybe they'd have done something different with her. You could do this movie, because this movie, of course, like all good Marvel movies, sets up a bunch of other things for future projects. But we set up the new Black Widow in this one, and she's great, and she's a highlight of something we'll talk later, which is Hawkeye. But so long and short of it is, I thought it was a mid-level Marvel project. I thought it was fun. I think anybody who enjoys the Marvel movies and anybody who enjoys sort of PG-13 spy thrillers, that the James Bond level spy thrillers, which are basically superhero movies, will enjoy this. What do you think?
I was excited when it became free on Disney Plus, because there are movies that we will pay for to watch as a family. Don't get me wrong, we do it all the time on our Friday family movie nights, but normally they're $3.99 or cheaper. So we waited, or I waited, because I'm the only one who watched it. Waited until Black Widow was free. It took me 2 tries to get through it. The first, I will admit that I fell asleep. I was tired. It was late, so I watched the ending again. I was like, how'd they get there? So it was a good movie. It wasn't the best movie, and you're definitely on the nose. Like it's in that middle gray area of, not top tier, but it's definitely not like Thor 2: The Dark World or Incredible Hulkish, give or take. But it's good. I loved David Harbour as the Red Guardian. I loved his stories, whether it's like him fighting Captain America. Just loved him fitting into a suit, like the whole like family dynamic. I really dug it. Yelena, I fell in love with her. I loved her whole sass on like just the talking back to Natasha.
You're a poser.
And being like, oh, let me show you the pose where you like land and you flip your hair, and the little callbacks and stuff. Like, yeah. I liked it. One of the things, whenever I would talk about like Marvel stuff, is I loved like Natasha's relationship from Winter Soldier. I loved her relationship with Sam, and I was like, dang, I'd love to see like those two have like a movie together. I didn't get that. I got a TV show later with Bucky, which fine. But again, this movie was at least 2 or 3 years late. Really should have come out at some point after Civil War. And I know that you had mentioned that there were higher ups that weren't interested in, a female driven movie. The same thing went with like the Black Panther movie. They didn't want to go in that direction either. I believe that person finally like was removed or resigned.
I think Disney got rid of him. If I understand, the time. Essentially, what happened is Kevin Feige took over in a bloody coup because he was so successful with the MCU. And that's why he's running not only the MCU, but he's running the TV side of this now too, right? He's basically, he Thanos'd up, and he got all the got all the Infinity Stones, and now he's in charge of movie and TV projects for Marvel for Disney, as it should be. I mean, can you argue with the guy's track record when it comes to the MCU? I mean, he turned the thing into the number one movie franchise, whatever in the world, and he did it without Batman. You know, like, can't argue with that, right? So anyway,
so my last words on Black Widow, which we'll again circle back with Yelena, but I'd love to see David Harbour, Red Guardian. I'd love to see him in a future something. Like, I don't know what and I don't know where, but even just for like a scene, like he could become like the Wong or Coulson or something where he just shows up occasionally.
yeah, that would be fun. I really desperately want to see his, not the real thing that happened, but whatever version of Captain America that he fought, because he's obsessed with. Did Captain America talk about me? That he had some fight with some version of Captain America who was probably not Steve Rogers, but of course in the comics there's always a guy. When Steve goes in the ice, the comics is like, oh, actually there was a Captain America in the 50s and a Captain America in the 60s, until Steve showed back up or whatever. And so he must have fought some kind of fake Cap, or he fights Bucky, who's, been brainwashed into thinking he's Cap, but he's really fighting for the Russians or whatever. I just desperately want to see that. I think that would be so much fun. And that was a highlight of the movie for me, was David Harbour's Red Guardian, who's old and fat and wants to talk about his glory days of fighting Captain America, and thinks that Captain America would ever be as obsessed with him, as he is with him. So that was great. But yeah, it's fine. I was happy with it.
Now, the next movie that came out, I'm trying to pull it up because I want to make sure. I believe it's Shang Chi.
Yeah, I made a little list, but I did TVs and movies. So the next movie is Shang Chi or Shang-Chi.
Okay. All right. So Shang Chi is one of the two movies, because this was the year of like going back in the Marvel realm of movies that we've had so far. There's been some ones where it's like, how are they going to pull that off? Like Guardians of the Galaxy was one where it's like, not a lot of people knew about them, wasn't too sure how it was going to happen. Like the Ant-Man movie with not having Pym as Ant-Man, like with Scott Lang, not many people know him. Shang-Chi is there, and it's like, I was thinking Shang-Chi would make a good like Netflix, when Netflix had like the Marvel stuff going on. I was like, oh, that'd be a great TV series. I was wrong. loved Shang-Chi. I already loved Simu Liu from Kim's Convenience, and I was like, oh, I'm so happy he gets to be Shang-Chi. But I really enjoyed the movie. That was one where I was so excited that I was able to finally watch it when it came on Disney Plus, and just got to dive into it.
I really, really loved just about everything about this movie. I thought they did such an exceptional job with doing. I mean, Shang-Chi is, and again, Marvel Comics and the characters in Marvel Comics were created over a period of 60 years. And so when things got fashionable, the comic writers and creators just took whatever was going on at the time in the culture and like, well, I'll make something out of that. My favorite version of that is the Chris Claremont, John Byrne era of X-Men. A lot of that, you can read that and you know what movie they went and saw the week before they had to make the comic, because they have The Brood, right? And so clearly they saw Alien. And they're like, oh, we'll just do a whole bunch of bad guy aliens that are exactly like Alien, And so Shang-Chi is Bruce Lee, the comic book, right? We wanted Kung Fu was super popular, and so we want to tap into that and do that. In the same way that the Punisher is, there were a bunch of Punisher type characters, Dirty Harry and stuff like that, had become popular, and so they were like, oh well, we'll throw one of those in there. He's a villain, or he's supposed to be in Marvel, to begin with, at least. So the fact that they took what was essentially, Bruce Lee, the comic book, and they built a whole fantasy world around it, and they still gave you like some awesome kung fu fights, and gave him superpowers that he's never had, I don't think, before in the comics, and they made it work. And then they took the Mandarin and turned that character, which has, I don't know what I'm, I'm a white dude in his 40s, right? Like, so I don't know. I know that people feel the Mandarin as a character is racist in the comics, and I have no reason to doubt those people. I'm sure that's true. I don't read a lot of like, I grew up with this stuff, but I didn't grow up in the 60s, so the character was different when I read him, but maybe he was still racist, right? So, but regardless, they took that and they said, okay, that's not going to work. Let's make sure that we, in the same way they did with Black Panther, let's make sure that we do this in a way that's culturally appropriate. And so they made that work, which again probably shouldn't work, and it did. And then they took, in the best surprise this movie has, they took the joke Mandarin from Iron Man 3 and they made you love him, right? Like they were like, yeah, no, he's a character in his own right. He's incredibly stupid. And he was stupid in Iron Man 3 when they finally revealed who and what he was. And they were like, no, we're gonna redeem that, for lack of a better word, too. But all of that doesn't matter. I mean, all the, this has got to be done in such a way to make sure that people aren't upset, and this has got to be done. None of that matters if the movie's not great, right? If the movie's not compelling, then it doesn't matter how much you made this group or that group happy with it. If the movie sucks, the movie sucks. And the movie is fantastic from start to finish. And it gives you gritty, street level kung fu, and then it gives you that sort of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon level of like, Asian movie fantasy. That's the only way I know how to describe it. I lack the language. I think it's called Wu something, but forgive me, I don't remember what it was called. I read it a million times when Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out, and I loved that movie, and I was just like, what is this? And I was like, oh, well, there's a whole genre basically of Asian cinema that's just this, right? But just really, really strong movie. What's her name? The sidekick character, Aquafina. I mean, I'd seen her. She's in like Crazy Rich Asians, right? And she has had. I've seen her in that. I've maybe seen her in one or two other things. She's so incredibly good here. Simu is great, but he has the traditional sort of arc of a Marvel superhero, where he has some tragedy he has to overcome, and he doesn't get a whole lot of jokey one-liners, but she gets to be the character who actually grows the most. And I found that really fascinating. I also I found it really compelling that they took two characters who were just, there's an idea in the movie that those two characters should grow up. And they kind of do, because they have to become superheroes. And then they also don't. They also still end up with Wong at the end of the movie, going to karaoke, right? And I really liked that. I was like, I know what the movie's trying to say, that you can't park cars for the rest of your life or whatever. But I also felt like the characters themselves kind of argued back. You know, they're like, well, yeah, but it's fun. Maybe we don't need to take on all of these responsibilities all the time. I don't know. I just thought it was exceptional. Um, I I think um, the arc with the um, Tony Leone's uh, character, um, and I'm struggling because I know he's got a different name than the Mandarin, and I can't remember what it is because it's been 6 months since I've seen the movie. But his arc where he um you know, he tries to break into this place where this evil dragon is because he's been convinced that the evil dragon is actually his wife who's trapped and he wants to rescue her. I'm not sure I ever bought it, you know, like I'm not sure that I ever was like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but I was willing to let that go. You know, at some point you've got to you got to do a some superhero things and you got to have a reason to do the superhero things, and that was as good enough a reason as anything else.
Right.
And I saw some like, oh, you know, it's always the um same sort of complaint about these movies is always that no matter what the movie ends, it always ends in a giant superhero battle. And in this one ends with a giant superhero battle, and my response to that is always, I don't know why you went to a Marvel movie. You know? Like I don't know. Like I love movies of all kinds. I finally sat down and watched Nomad Land the other day. I don't know if you've seen that, but it was directed by the person who directed Eternals, and I loved Nomad Land. And there's definitely no, you know, it's about poor people on the fringes of society and how they live their lives, and it's a, you know, adult drama and all those kinds of things. And you know, and if there'd been a giant superhero battle at the end of it, I'd have been upset, you know. But if you go to an MCU movie and there's a giant superhero battle at the end of it, I feel like it was my money was well spent because that's what I went to go see. You know,
Right.
it's like when you go to see a John Wick movie and then you complain that there are all these shootings and killings, and it's like, guys, it's a John Wick movie. What did you want? You know. Uh, anyway, thought it was great.
Yeah, there's a when it came out, a lot of people that I follow on the social medias were automatically like top five. It's like just putting it in their top five movie, and I was really excited to see that and be like, okay, because I kind of have like my rotating top five, and it's definitely got a place either near, like right on the outside, or in that top five, depending on like the day that I feel like
Right.
ranking movies. I also liked Shang Chi's sister,
Yeah.
Shaling. I was like, because I liked her arc of, you know, she was the ignored daughter, of course, but then she starts to do like the whole mastermind and take over.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the movie, she's like, now she's the one in charge of the 10 rings. And I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes, because I'd love to see if it connects with something on the TV side later on down the road, of if like certain characters are working together, which would be really cool. You know,
Right.
we'll
Yeah.
get to that. But overall, loved the movie. I liked at the end, you know, they get picked up by Wong, and it's like, okay, time to go. Like, we got stuff to do.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that whole Wong is fighting the Abomination in the fight ring, and we're not going to explain to you why they're doing that at all in this movie or at all in 2022. Like, chef's kiss, Marvel. God bless you for just being like, no, Wong does weird stuff, and maybe someday we'll tell you why. You know, stick around. I was just like, oh, that's they didn't even. I mean, I guess they sort of hinted at what they were doing and why they were doing it, and oh, they're, you know, maybe Wong finally needs money for a sandwich. I mean, I don't know, you know, but it was so, I loved that so much. That is, to me, that's sort of classic Marvel Comics kind of thing where like a character can just walk through your comic book. You're buying a Spider-Man comic and the Punisher shows up on one page in a background or whatever, or Daredevil swings by, but it's not on the cover and nobody teased you about it. It all takes place in the same universe, and so yeah, occasionally characters just interact.
Right.
It's one of the key sort of Marvel things that makes Marvel Marvel, and they have translated it so well into the movies. It needed a little what it needed to be a perfect Marvel movie for me was a little star and then an editor's note that said, check out Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, at the bottom of the screen, because that's the way it was in comic books. Want to know why Daredevil's doing this weird thing in the Spider-Man comic? Check out Daredevil on stands now, issue 87, or whatever.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it so much. So much.
All right. So we got Black Widow, we got Shang-Chi, and then probably the one that the movie where I was like, I don't have any information on it. I don't know who the characters are. I've never read an Eternals comic book.
Right.
I've never, nothing. I had no idea. And again, waited till Disney Plus, because that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I'm going to say it. I don't care how many people disagree with me or agree with me, whatever. The hate that this movie gets is totally unwarranted. I loved it. I thought it was a beautiful movie. I fell in love with most of the characters, and the characters that I didn't fall in love with is just because I didn't like them. It's not like I was like, oh, I hate this character.
You were supposed to dislike them.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. It did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, and I really fell in love with them. I want to see more of them. They're like the new Guardians of the Galaxy, essentially, for me, of I really want to see how they play out in the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I feel like this movie is one of those movies where it's like, in 5 or 10 years, we'll be pointing back to the Eternals to be like, well, that started because of the Eternals movie. All this stuff kind of triggered down because of that movie will be the start of a lot of stuff that happens in the cinematic universe. That's my feeling. I was the only thing I was a bit bummed about was I didn't get as much as I thought of Black Knight, Dane.
Yeah.
I kept seeing a lot of stuff I know he's in the movie, but then is only maybe the first 20 minutes.
It's a cameo. It's a cameo of a character who's not a superhero yet, too.
Yeah.
It's like him. It's like when Steve Rogers or somebody would show up and they didn't have powers yet, which is really usually pretty early on in any kind of comic book story. But yeah, this. So now I want to let you finish before I have, because I have plenty to say as usual. But let me let you finish it. But yeah, it's a cameo. It's not what it was billed as. You thought you were going to get not only Eternals movie but a Black Knight movie.
I thought he'd be tagging along.
Right.
And I totally got the character wrong that was tagging along, which I will say, I love that character. I love that he tagged along. I loved the relationship that they had. And I loved that these characters who are essentially a family, as disparate as they are, I love that they're able to come together and have the relationship that they have. I thought that the casting choices were incredible. I loved seeing them as essentially normal people for most of the movie, and it's I like that. I like that they're just trying to live their lives.
Yeah. I maybe didn't love it the way you loved it, but I didn't hate it either. Which is it gets a lot of hate, and I think it gets hate because it is the director, the script writer, whoever it is that is behind this movie. Which again, the director is um, the woman who won an Oscar for directing Nomadland.
Hmm.
Um, they're trying to do something radically different with the Marvel format, right? They're trying to tell a story about characters who live for centuries, and it's not only you said that you never read any Eternals thing. And David, as you know, I've been reading comics and Marvel comics in particular, basically all of my life, and I have never read any Eternals thing in my lifetime. They brought it back once. Neil Gaiman, who wrote Sandman, who's a great writer and a great comic book writer, sort of relaunched it as a 10-issue, 12-issue thing, but I never picked it up. And as far as I know, for the most part, a lot of people didn't pick it up because the Eternals were such obscure characters that nobody really ever cared much about them, right? Um, and so the movie's trying to do this thing that is a tough. It would be tough to do for any movie, right? To talk about sort of eternity and eternal life, and vampire movies do this. Highlander does it really well. They're trying to do this thing. Then it's trying to mix Jack Kirby, and if you know anything about Jack Kirby is, first of all, he's the co-creator, essentially one of the co-creators of the Marvel universe, but his whole sort of style is senses shattering action, right? Like all these characters are super powerful and they punch things, and that's what he does. Okay, and then when Neil, of course, took it over, Neil has a completely different thing, and it's more cerebral. It's more internal. Everybody's emotions are sort of dealt with and on display. Their motivations. It's not just with Neil. It's never heroism for the sake of heroism, right? And so I think it had a really hard time mixing all of those elements, and then it had to set up, what probably is the next 5 years of Marvel movies, with various things, with Kit Harington's Black Knight, with these Eternals characters, and I would say the only MCU movie that's done this really well with a cast this large has been Guardians of the Galaxy, and Guardians was a comedy. And
Yeah.
in a comedy, all I got to do is just laugh and enjoy the characters. And this movie wanted me to. It wasn't. It was certainly not a comedy, and it wanted me to go with the drama for its characters. And it had some comedic moments in it. The character you were talking about that hangs out with Kingo is Karun. I pulled up the cast so I could get this right this time. Um, it has some really, really strong moments. I liked this movie. I would probably put it, for me, it's on that sort of Black Widow set of, I liked this. I didn't just love it. I'll probably watch it again, you know, uh, this year, next year. I'll watch it when the characters come back around for their appearances in the next things.
Hmm.
Um, I thought that there's a really great moment where Selma Hayek, who's Ajak, who's the leader of the Eternals, is talking to Icarus, and she explains how what they've always done is they've set these worlds up for destruction, and she's not going to do that this time because these people fought Thanos and won and brought everybody back. But it's so emotional. She's so good at that. And I was really blown away by that moment. And I didn't I was probably the only one in the theater because I'm dumb sometimes, but I totally didn't see the Icarus heel turn, right? Where he's the bad guy. Like, I'm sure everybody else, like 2 scenes into the movie, was like, oh, that's the bad guy. And I didn't really see it until maybe, a couple of minutes before it happened. There came a point where I was like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. But it was way later in the movie than it probably should have been. Um, I thought that the movie had some real winning characters with Kingo and Fastus, which is Camille and Brian Tyree Henry. I'm sorry, I can't. There's no way I'm going to be able to pronounce Camille's last name correctly, so I'm just going to move on. But I thought those characters were real winners, and we got a lot of Kingo. We didn't get nearly enough of Fastus.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of cool stuff with him. We finally get in a Marvel movie, I think for the first time, an openly gay couple. One of them is a superhero, but does all this? The movie does all this stuff with Kingo, and I've never seen this in an action. Tell me if you've ever seen this before. But the character essentially says, "Okay, we're going to the big final battle now. I'm out. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
Yep.
I'm not doing that." And then I was watching that whole battle scene going, when's my man Kingo going to come here and save the day, right? Like, he's going to show back up, right? Like, you can't just let him leave. And then he totally leaves and never comes back. And I was like, my head exploded, when it was over and they were just like hanging out in the street with him later. And I was like, what did I just see? Because I've never seen that before, where an ostensibly heroic character is just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to go to that battle. That would be bad. And then he doesn't. He doesn't have a change of heart.
And not only that, but they're kind of like, okay,
yeah,
okay.
I don't know, that had to have been. I would love to hear the inside story of that, because that had to have been like a COVID thing. Like, he must have gotten COVID, or he must have said to the people producing the movie, "I'm too scared of COVID to come to the. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do that." And they worked around it. I cannot believe that the original script was like, and then Kingo leaves and never comes back. Like,
it's almost akin to like the Indiana Jones story where he just pulls out the gun and shoots him instead of the fight. Like,
that is
like, it's that level of like change
of like surprise. Like, I cannot believe I just saw that. I liked the Angelina Jolie stuff here. I liked Don Lee as Gilgamesh.
Mm-hmm.
That made me sad because I really liked that character, and they killed him off. At least theoretically, it's an MCU movie about space robots, so I guess we could still get him back, right?
Yep.
They had a whole lot, again, they had an awful lot they had to explain, and a lot of backstory and weird Marvel space cosmic stuff, which I was just, to see a celestial, like, we've seen celestials before, but to like really like deal with one, I just love that they're willing to risk that. They're willing to be like, yeah, this is what a Jack Kirby space god looks like, take it or leave it, but we're going to show you what it looks like, right? We're not going to hide him in a cloud like the, old Fantastic Four movie did with Galactus, right? Mm-hmm. So I just don't, I'm not sure that it ever like super worked for me, but I would say that it was at least as good as Black Widow, if not maybe a little better than Black Widow. I would say that it swung for the fences. Is the credit that I would give to this movie. That like this movie tried to like do an awful lot of like really dangerous, difficult things to do in a superhero movie. Like, this was not a paint by number superhero movie, and it tried to do an awful lot. And I would not say that it succeeded. You know what I mean? I think that it just didn't get there for me, at least in a lot of areas. But I didn't hate it. I didn't. It's not. Of course, I don't. There are there are very few Marvel movies that like I go back and I'm like, well, I hate that. I'm never watching that again. That was terrible.
Right.
You know, like generally speaking, I'm an easy grade. You know, I'm the easy A in class. You know, like, oh, they had superpowers and they fought on screen. Okay, C plus. You know, like whatever it is. You know,
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Well, I think you talked about like how they swing for the fences and they're trying to do like a different movie essentially,
Yeah.
like getting away, and that's what everyone asks for. Everyone is saying, stop having the way that they keep doing the Marvel movies,
Mhm.
whether
Mhm.
and I know we've started to break away from that, like especially with like the Ant-Man as the heist movies, and
Right.
they started going in that like a step. I love that they went out of the comfort zone, because they did it with Guardians too. But
Mhm.
again, you mentioned, Guardians is totally a comedy of a bunch of space knuckleheads,
Right. Yeah.
doing what they do. I'm glad that they swung for the fences. I'm really interested to see where a lot of these characters wind up. Also, failed to mention, loved Makari. I loved her character, and I hope she shows
Yeah.
back up somewhere down
Yeah.
the road as well.
I liked Druig, although
Yeah.
um that was another weird turn, because it to me, they set that guy up to be the villain or one of the
Hmm.
villains of the piece, and then they don't follow through with it. You know, like it's clear that like, well, he's like an evil mastermind who's controlling people, and the movie's like, yeah, he is. Okay, now we're gonna go over here. And it's like, well, wait a second, you gotta deal with the fact that the dude's running like a weird cult in South America, don't you? No, we're not really going to deal with that, right? At least we're not going to deal with it right now. Do you
Hmm.
know? Did you read anywhere or see what the original ending um was supposed to be, or what the director supposedly wanted? I mean, I always like couch this stuff with like 10 levels of nobody really knows, and if you read it online, it doesn't mean that anything about it is true. But did you
I
read what the original ending was supposed to be?
I probably read it at some point, but I cannot remember it.
So supposedly the original ending, uh, Chloe Zhao, by the way, I should get her name right, is the director. Um, the original ending that she supposedly wanted was that you'd have the whole movie. I guess it would be essentially like it was, but because they're space robots, they would wake up all together on another planet somewhere with no memories of their lives on Earth.
Okay.
And on the one hand, that's the most incredibly depressing ending
Hmm.
to a movie, a Marvel movie in particular, that I can think of. On the other hand, you know what? I don't know, man. That might have been the right choice. Like all the themes of this movie are realized if that's the ending. If the space god Celestial just grabs them all up and is like, "Well, you're all done now," and then there you just see another group of Eternals with no memory of Earth, like that, incredibly depressing, may have been the right choice, right? So make of that what you will.
All right, and before we move on to the last movie, got to talk about the ending with Dane and the Black Sword, or the Ebon Blade, or whatever
It's
it is,
the ebony blade, sir. The
and
ebony
then
the ebony blade.
having Mahershala Ali, who just the voice, but we know he's playing Blade,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in apparently the same room as the Black Knight. And I can only because we know there's already been discussions about like vampires,
Right.
that have been name dropped in there, so we know that that's the thing. I'm just I'm I'm curious to see where they're gonna go with this, because we know Blade's coming out at some point in the next couple of years. Don't know when, but
I'm good. Like it'll happen when it happens. I'm kind of, and we'll get there eventually because we'll talk about the future projects. I have a friend who constantly, whatever the thing is, it's gonna be the greatest thing ever. Like he's currently like the new Batman movie, gonna be the greatest thing ever. And like, that I don't know if you've seen the trailer for it, but Northman or whatever, the North, the basically it's a Conan the Barbarian, but he's a Viking or whatever. There's been a trailer. It looks like a fun movie. Gonna be the greatest thing ever, Brady. It's gonna be top 3 movie for me next year. It's like calm down, and like that's I guess I've just been around for too long, but like I enjoy the Marvel teases for the next thing. I do, but at the same time, I'm perfectly happy. When we get to Hawkeye, there's a end at the last episode. There's a little thing, and it teases nothing, and it filled me with so much joy. And people were like, "But they didn't give us," and I was like, "Man, it's Christmas. They gave us a cute little Christmas present at the end of that show.
That's
just love it. Just love it for what it is." So yeah, I don't know. All we've got is cameo, and we got a voice cameo at that. So. I think it'll be good because I think most Marvel stuff ends up being good. But until we get it and see it and know what it is, I don't know. We'll see.
And you mentioned Batman, but I'd be remiss to not have the comment of they name drop Superman in a Marvel movie, and I was like, for all the character, obviously with Icarus, it's like, I can see that. Okay. That was a surprise. I was like,
here, let's analyze this for a second. Do the people who live in the Marvel universe all read DC Comics? Because there is no Marvel Comics to read. So they have DC and they have Image, right? Like that's what they get. When they go to a comic book shop in the MCU, nothing but DC Comics. And fun fact, in Marvel Comics, the creators of the comics, people like Stan Lee and John Byrne and Jack Kirby, often put themselves in the comic as a person who is in comic form telling you the real life story of the heroes, right? So like John Byrne you'd see him calling the Fantastic Four and be like, "So what'd you get up to this month?" And and they would be like, "We're busy right now, John. We're doing some stuff." So in Marvel Comics, at least, you go buy comic books, but they're actually documentaries. That's that's what you need to know. Anyway, sorry.
It's okay. It's all good. So the last movie, which is the one I saw in theaters, and what can I say? I loved it. And it's the one character where I'm like, dang, like now we've got how many movies with Spider-Man? This is like Spider-Man movie number 8, right? Yeah, this is number 8 out of all the Spider-Mans. Absolutely enjoyed the movie.
Okay. So I spent the last hour of this movie crying. Just weeping, okay? Out of like joy and drama and all of the stuff that happens in this movie that I just couldn't believe I was getting to watch. Let's so how do you break this down? To start with, before we started the podcast, I watched all of the Spider-Man modern. I guess there's some TV movies and stuff that I didn't watch, but from like the 70s or 80s or whatever. But I watched all the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I watched the 2 Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I watched, and I'd never seen the second Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie before because I heard it was bad and I just never watched it.
Yeah, I've never seen it either.
I watched the 2 Venom movies. I watched the cartoon that everybody says is the greatest, superhero movie ever made. The
Into the
Spider-Verse. I watched that again. Obviously, I'd seen it. I hadn't seen the second Venom movie either, so I watched that for the first time. And I watched the 2 Tom Holland movies again, which I've seen multiple times and loved. And this movie it rewarded my obsessive compulsive disorder by giving me Spider-Man Endgame, right? Like not only am I going to give you a satisfying conclusion to a trilogy of the Tom Holland Spider-Man, I'm also going to give you a satisfying conclusion to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, which we never got because we never got a third movie. And I'm going to give you Toby again, just because you should love Toby and you should forgive him for dancing in the Venom costume, even though it gave us great memes. It was ridiculous, when he in the third Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does all of this stuff. The thing that had me crying was that, and the problem I have with so much of our culture and so much of what some people, and they're not wrong, everybody can believe what they want to believe. The folks who love Zack Snyder's stuff are free to love his stuff. But what for me, what they get wrong is heroism. Like these are stories for kids about what it means to be a hero. And Spider-Man is a hero because he does everything he can to save lives. He doesn't, because it's convenient, kill villains, right? So he, in fact, it was very much a, I don't want to have to like rehash the whole plot, but basically, he ends up with these villain characters who are in his universe, who are not from his universe, and Aunt May teaches him to be Spider-Man and tells him, you can't just send these poor, wounded human beings back to their universes to be killed. You have to save them. You have to help them. Because that's
Right.
what Spider-Man does. And she, and I may cry saying this, she pays the ultimate price for that, right? To teach him to be a hero. She dies in the movie. And the last thing she says to him famously is, with great power comes great responsibility. And I mean, David, just I just wept for the next hour, right? Like that is the point of Spider-Man. And if you don't get that, if you think Spider-Man should have just saved everybody the trouble and hit the magic Doctor Strange box and sent them back and let them die, or basically, if you argue with the philosophy of this movie, I would say you missed Spider-Man, right? Like you didn't get it, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't get it, and you're probably never gonna get it, and I'm sad for you, And then not only did they give us that, but they gave us, and having just seen it like 2 days ago, and again, spoilers for whatever it is now, a 10-year-old movie, in Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield, they do the famous thing from the comics in that he can't save Gwen Stacy. And
Right.
she dies in that movie. And she dies by falling, and he like hits her with the web, which is exactly what happens in the comic, and she breaks her back and she dies. And there's a whole bunch of things that movie does wrong. Mainly the main sin of that movie is not that she dies, but that she dies for even though he made a vow to stay away from her, he can't do that because he loves her, and she makes her own choices because she's a woman with agency, but there was another way to do that probably would have worked better. And hindsight's always 2020, and making movies is hard. But the fact that whole storyline basically gets redeemed in one scene in this movie with him saving Zendaya, MJ, and you don't get 30 minutes, you know what I mean? You don't even get 5 minutes. You get like 3 lines and Andrew Garfield's amazing acting. And then it redeems a whole set of Spider-Man movies. Like it is, and this is literally, I could not believe how much I loved what I was watching as I was watching it. So I, you know, and I don't, people are all like, they're actually, I guess they're campaigning for this to get into the Oscars or whatever, and I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. Who cares? The Oscars is notoriously bad at actually picking what's good at the movies, right? Like,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't care. But if it got nominated for an Oscar, they nominate 10 movies now for an Oscar. I think so. You know what I mean? Like, I'm down for that. I think it's brilliant. And every little, the thing where there's some little cartoon out there that I saw, which was basically Alfred Molina as Doc Ock turning to Peter and going, "Hello, Peter," and his like happy, sane, the arms haven't made him crazy, and
Right.
it was like, and the cartoon was like, here you are as a kid, and he says "Hello, Peter" in the Raimi movie, and here you are as an adult, and he's saying "Hello, Peter" to you again. And I mean, just great big tears for me, right? Like, oh, yes, exactly. I loved these things. I love the Raimi stuff. And I get to spend some more time with these characters who are playing the same characters in a different, weird, alternate MCU version or whatever. And just absolutely adored it. So there you go. I rambled way too long because we got so much to go through, but I think it is a perfect Spider-Man movie, and it was the perfect, momentarily end of the Spider-Man story.
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you think?
I'm interested to see where the movie goes from here, because we know that they're negotiating with Holland for the next trilogy.
Yeah.
There's also been a ton of rumors about Zendaya has asked for her own standalone movie. There's talk about having Andrew Garfield having his actual third movie. I even heard rumors that the fourth movie that they're trying to have all the Spider-Men back again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure where they're going to go, but I'm glad that we're finally going to have Peter alone, existing in the Marvel universe, but not having the Iron Man help, or Happy, or Doctor Strange, or the Avengers. He's actually going to kind of he's got the reset button of now it's him doing his own thing and having to navigate that, and hopefully reconnect with his friends as time goes on. And of course with the teaser at the end with Venom showing up in the Marvel universe and then leaving a part of the symbiote behind. Of course, I'm interested to see how that goes. I'm excited. I wasn't really happy that they went the Peter Parker route with the MCU reboot with Sony.
Yeah,
I really wanted Miles.
Yeah,
I wanted Miles. But there's definitely some potential now, and I know that they're doing a show, like a Spider-Man Year One type show that they're doing on Disney Plus in the next couple of years. But I'm optimistic to see where Sony plays with their Spider-Man universe with Venom and Morbius whenever that comes out, and see what they're going to do with it.
Well, so one of the things to think about when you think about the MCU Spider-Man movies is that all three of them are Marvel team-up comics. So it's Spider-Man and Iron Man in the first one. And then it's Spider-Man and Nick Fury team up in the second one. And then it's Spider-Man, Doctor Strange in the third one. And of course, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and two other Spider-Man. So when you think of them like that, as, oh, these are Spider-Man team-up movies, I think it sort of placed it for me in a really interesting place. And he was also a character, again, that was not he wasn't standalone. He was in the MCU, and the MCU is this sort of weird movie television hybrid where everything has to connect and go to the next thing. One of the funniest lines of this movie is Tom being like, I fought with a team before I was in the Avengers, and Toby and Andrew are like, that's awesome. What are the Avengers?
Exactly.
Is that a band? That and them and Toby having internal, web shooters, and Tom and Andrew both being like, what
Yep.
is that? That was another just like perfect Spidey moment. Straight feels like it came straight out of a Brian Bendis comic. I as for the future, Tom's already doing that interview that actors do when they're kind of burnt out. They always sort of do at the end of these sort of long, grueling interview where it's just like, this thing may kill me. Like he's already sort of doing that interview. Like I don't know if my back, the Tobey Maguire breaks his back interview, and so I don't know that he's got 3 more movies in him, and he's much older. Obviously now than when he started. I really hope that for me, the next movie or the next trilogy of movies sort of need to be about Tom handing the reins to Miles Morales. To me, that's what you do. And you would do the first movie is like the Miles origin movie, and the second movie is Spider-Man, with Miles and Peter. And then I mean, I hate to say it, I don't know that I can take it or that America can take it, but the third movie is freaking Peter Parker dying, right? And Miles taking over. And to me, that's the trilogy that you should do. And I sort of doubt very strong, if he were purely an MCU character, I have no doubt I would get that trilogy.
Right.
But because Sony owns him, and Sony, thinks there's money to be made with like Morbius, and maybe there is. I mean, I don't know, but they think there's money to be made with a Craven movie, and they think there's money to be made with all these sort of Spidey villain movies and weird tangents and all that kind of stuff. And like, I don't know what Sony will do. I have no idea. If you asked me, and nobody did, that would be my next trilogy, but it would be the last Tom Holland trilogy. That's how I would pitch it to Tom. Be like, well, you're a hero, and you're going to be heroic for 3 movies, and in the third movie you got to die, because that's what happens. You got to sacrifice yourself, and the new generation's got to take over. Or maybe you don't die, but you retire with MJ, and you have Spider Girl,
right?
And then we see you for cameos for the next 20 years, right? As we do, Gwen, we do Spider Gwen, and we do Miles, and we do, May Parker and whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, that takes us to this year,
right.
2022.
Yeah.
We got 3 movies on deck. Interesting characters, all 3, of course. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We got Thor, Love and Thunder. And we got Black Panther, Wakanda Forever are the 3 that are slated to come out. Now, we're recording it in January.
Yeah.
This episode drops in March. I will say, of the 3, I'm very cautious on how Black Panther's proceeding, only because of the delays with Letitia Wright, who plays Shuri, having an injury and then not being allowed back into the States for a while because of vaccination requirements. And then just recently, there's another, I believe, Lupita Nyong'o came down with COVID and has been recovering during their shooting and reshoots that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. That movie, I have a lot of concerns about, and it doesn't have anything to do with the cast, or I think the director from the first one came back for this, right? Or the
Yeah, Ryan
writers.
Coogler. Yeah,
Like everybody's back. My concern with doing a Black Panther sequel is that, um, Black Panther died in real life, and you know, superhero movies deal with death all the time. But to lose Chadwick Boseman is how do you overcome that, right? And still make a Black Panther movie.
mm-hmm.
And I know that the answer is that, well, you honor his memory, and his sister in the movie becomes the new Black Panther, and you get a black woman superhero, which I think the world absolutely needs. On the big screen, I think that's an awesome idea. But will it work? Like I don't know. And if the actress has a bunch of strong political views that are so strong that they're impacting her showing up to work, is she the right person to carry that mantle? And I don't necessarily care what her political views are, but these movies, I mean, I do a little bit, but these movies are generally apolitical. If we get to Falcon and Winter Soldier, we're going to talk about the worst speech I've ever heard from somebody who didn't want to offend anybody and then had to make a speech, but yeah, that to me, that movie, I just don't, I don't know. But we're still a year away, and I always tell people, trust the machine, trust the process. Like the machine will figure it out. It usually does, and come up with something that works. And we're in a multiverse now. So in the other universe, where Eric Killmonger became the Black Panther, but he had a better political ideology, and now he slides into our universe, and he's the new Black Panther. You know what I mean? Or Okoye, becomes the Black Panther, or Martin Freeman well, maybe not. Like I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know that we're getting that this year, but fingers crossed. We'll see, right?
What are your thoughts about Doctor Strange in the multiverse? Because there's been so much coming out, because they're doing the reshoots, or they've done the reshoots. They're wrapping up the movie. Everything got pushed back movie wise again with everything, so it's coming out later than it was supposed to be. But I've been hearing so much about who's going to be in it, what's happening, what the fights, and it almost sounds too good to be true. But I'm again optimistic about it.
So they tacked the trailer onto the end of my Spider-Man movie. Like they didn't even do sometimes they do these little scenes from the next movie and they show them to you, but they're not trailers. And in this time they were just like, no, here's the trailer, enjoy. And the trailer didn't do a whole lot for me. I specifically don't, and in fact somebody violated my rule and told me, that basically, I guess the rumor is that everybody who's ever been in a Marvel movie is going to end up in this thing, including Marvel movies from the 80s and the 90s or whatever, right? Before the MCU was a thing. So that's the big rumor. And I don't, maybe, I mean, I don't know. The trailer, I guess, does give us a Baron Mordo, although I don't guess he's a Baron in the MCU, which is really sad because evil Barons are the best. But it gives us Baron Mordo. It gives us Wanda. we set up this movie in WandaVision at least a little bit, and now we've set up even some more elements of this movie in Spider-Man: No Way Home. But again, given this movie was actually, I think, originally going to come out before Spider-Man did, and it was going to set up the multiverse idea. And then COVID happened, and for whatever reason, they got switched. Spidey became the movie that came out, and the people making Doctor Strange had to deal with it. And in fact, somebody on one podcast I was listening to was suggesting that the reason that Peter walks into the Sanctum Sanctorum and it's covered in snow was an element that would have been explained in the Doctor Strange movie, but the timelines didn't match, so they just had to make a weird joke about it and move on.
Right.
And I don't know if that's, who knows. So I'll be there Friday night. I look forward to it. Right? Hopefully, barring any more COVID or whatever. I look forward to it. I don't know. I wouldn't bet against Marvel, but I also haven't seen anything so far that's made me just like jump out of my chair. And maybe if I watch the next trailer, which I probably won't do because I hate to get the whole plot in a trailer, which is usually what happens by the time the second trailer rolls around. I like walking into these things as cold and blind as possible, so that when the surprises happen, I'm actually surprised.
Exactly.
I knew that Toby and Andrew were going to be in this movie, but I still, like, when they popped up, I was just like, oh, it actually happened. It's real. I'm watching it,
Yep.
And that's how I want to walk into most movies. I don't want to know the whole movie. I wish the people who made trailers, and the people who watched movies felt like I did, but they don't, right? Like people are like, I'll go see your movie, but you got to tell me your whole movie in a trailer before I come to your movie, like,
right.
Why did you do that? No. So anyway, hopefully I live in hope, David. I live in hope.
Well, and then we have Thor: Love and Thunder, which is almost could be called the Asgardians of the galaxy, because you got the Guardians for a little bit in this movie. You got Natalie Portman coming back as Jane to be Thor. So this is a movie I'm really looking forward to. As far as I like Taiki Waititi.
Yeah,
I like what he did with Ragnarok. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do with them, because I know that Natalie Portman had like a huge falling out with Marvel.
Yeah,
and was like she wasn't going to come back, and
then
I think there's like.
And then somehow he made it happen. He's a magician. He's a wizard, Harry. Wrong franchise. But I of the three of these, and I guess we're agreeing that there's three that are planned. And we're not counting Morbius. I've noticed, because
no,
that doesn't count, right?
Yeah.
So of the three of these, this is the one that I would say is bulletproof, and I'm sure that's gonna bite me, when I go see it, and I'm terribly disappointed, and I leave the theater crying for all the wrong reasons, right? But like, no, how do you can't mess this up, right? Like, Ragnarok was one of the best. Like, I don't make these lists anymore. There's too many MCU movies, and I like different movies for different reasons, and like, so I don't make a top 5, top 10 list anymore. But yeah, Thor Ragnarok's in my top 5, right? Like,
right.
No doubt, that's in there. Some others are definitely probably in there because I'll never kick them out because they meant so much to me at the time, regardless of how good they are, as movie or film or cinema or whatever. So yeah, this one to me is just like, this is the one that I'm super excited about. This is the one where I trust the director and the cast maybe the most. I'm not going to worry about whether or not the guy who plays Thor can pull off a Asgardian accent. I think he's proven he can. Whereas I'm deeply worried, then upset they won't just let Stephen Strange be British. Just let him be British. Don't quit quit making that poor man speak in an American accent. Why, God? So yeah, no, I think having seen no footage, having seen no trailer, it's my top movie of the year. Calling it now, number one with a bullet, with a hammer. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we covered the past year. We talked about the coming this year for movies. So right now, dear listeners, we're going to switch over. We're going to talk about the other side, the flip side, the Disney Plus side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is really just the Marvel shows.
Yeah.
I mean, they. I remember when we talked about the Disney Plus stuff about 2 years ago, and I remember being real concerned about how are we going to be able to fit everything and watch everything, and is it going to be required viewing? And so far so good. Of course, the stuff that's come out hasn't really relied on a lot of the Marvel movies at this point. We're gearing up to that now.
Yeah, I mean, WandaVision is required viewing, and I tell people, like, I have people in my house who I was like, you need to watch Hawkeye, but you should probably watch Black Widow first, right? Like,
yeah.
Marvel gonna Marvel, but I also think that what they're asking, I guess there's one way to look at it is that they're making you commit to whatever it was, 30 hours of entertainment, right? If you add up more than that, I guess maybe 50 hours, something like that. Because if you count up each of these shows, and they all had 6 or 7 episodes, and then you add up the 2-hour, 3-hour runtime of each movie, well, now you're at 50, 60 hours. But to me, it was like, oh, I'm going to get 6 episodes of this? Okay, cool. This is fun. And they were all slightly different, and each of them had its strengths and weaknesses. We got WandaVision first.
Yep.
I liked WandaVision. I got super annoyed with the conceit of WandaVision, because I think for 3 episodes they do the TV parodies. Like, each episode is a different decade of TV sitcom parodies. They do 3 of them, and it's either the fourth. It's the 4th episode where they finally give you a little bit more.
Yeah.
But like, by the time we got to that 3rd episode, and we were still, the whole episode was a TV parody essentially, and there wasn't much more than, hey, this is a TV parody. I was just like, oh, you gotta quit this. I can't take much more of this. And then they marveled, right? They finally, like, okay, now in the 4th episode, we're gonna give you everything else and explain what the heck's going on, and so
right.
And so then I felt much better, and I thought the rest of the show was really strong. And I know people that just adored this show, in part because it was the opposite, until maybe the last episode, of what you expect from a Marvel entertainment product, right? For lack of a better phrase. It's not a giant superhero fight. It's about a woman's grief, which is a crazy topic for your first TV show. Hello, world Disney Plus people. Let's do 7 episodes about grief, right? And like, they pulled that off, and I was, when they were done, I was like, oh, this is gonna be something really interesting. Marvel's really got some neat plans and ideas going forward. And then we got Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Well, I want to talk about WandaVision for 2 things.
Sure.
The first thing is, and it was brought up by somebody I follow on Twitter, about how his wife couldn't connect with WandaVision because she has no cultural background in the shows that they're spoofing.
Wow. Yeah.
And And I was thinking about that, and because you and I fall in we're the 40ish old
Mm-hmm.
guys,
Yep.
like we fall in the generation where we might not have like watched those shows specifically, but maybe we watched them when our parents were watching them, and therefore we've got some of that like background to it. And I can totally see why so many people were turned off until and we're told basically watch and get through the first couple episodes and then you'll enjoy it, because there's no cultural thing now where you're watching these shows that they're spoofing. Like you don't
Right.
really find them out there anymore.
No, and like they did, I guess the third episode is basically like a Family Ties episode.
Hmm.
Maybe it's even Family Ties Full House. But like when they did an opening that was basically the Family Ties opening, I was like, well, I'm 6 years old all over again, because I absolutely remember that, and I watched that. Like I didn't watch like a I Love Lucy. I mean, I've seen episodes and reruns or whatever, but so
Hmm.
those first couple of spoofs was just like, well, that's even, I'm 42 and that's beyond me, but I get what you're doing because I've seen it, right?
Right.
But yeah, if you're 20 years old, you know, and you have no cultural baggage or connection to sitcoms from the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, yeah, I can't imagine what you went through watching. You must have pulled your hair out, watching this parody of this thing that you don't know what it is, and you don't know why the laugh track is there, and you've
Hmm.
never seen anything like this. Like, I can only imagine what that must have been like for people. But of course, they made it for 40-year-old dudes like me, didn't they? Like that's what that's, and grieving mothers, apparently. Like that was the core audience, right?
and and the other thing, so I'll get to this, is that like I like that they were able to flesh out Wanda, who's severely, lacking in the previous movies. You don't really get to see much of like her and her character,
Mm-hmm.
and she gets to develop. I'm curious to see what they do with where they go with Vision as far as his character goes after the end of it. But I want to say the love that I had for WandaVision stems from Darcy, Jimmy Woo, and Monica. Like those three characters, absolutely love them. I'm so glad that Darcy and Jimmy showed up, and
Yeah,
I want more of them. Like I want more of them.
yeah, absolutely. They helped really balance out that show. I really got to a place where I enjoyed the Wanda characterization and Vision near the end of I mean, at the end, if you're not like emotionally, uh, you know, if you're not feeling what is grief but love persisting, like I
Hmm.
don't know what to do with you, right? Like either that line really hits home for you, or the whole show probably just didn't work for you. Um, and so yeah, we got a lot of. I was, these TV things are always like so um, interesting, because I almost feel like I'm Charlie Brown trying to kick the football. Like she goes at one point to like get a scientist or get somebody to help her. Monica does, and I'm going, oh, Mr. Fantastic is coming,
Yep. Yep.
to save this town, and he's gonna science this thing up, and we're gonna get the Fantastic Four. And she just comes back with like an army buddy who's like
Yeah.
not anybody's ever, it's just like, oh, you really, you hurt me, Marvel. Like I've really thought, and I did it to myself, right? It's like Marvel's fault that I built up oh my god, or that the whole world, wanted Mephisto for some strange reason, like
Yep.
as if Mephisto is just like the greatest Marvel villain of all time. Like, oh god, I have. Did you collect the Marvel cards with me when we were in like middle school?
Oh yeah. Like I remember going and buying like the whole set from that like I can't even remember which comic shop it was, but
Yeah.
I remember buying the whole set from that
That
place.
that's well. I hope you. I hope you held on to them and you sold them for $5,000 or $6,000 during COVID, because you could sell them for tons of money, because when COVID happened, everybody went nuts with collectibles. But the reason I brought up the cards is because I distinctly remember the first set, and they had Mephisto, probably drawn by John Romita or somebody, and on the back of the card was this only thing on it was like, said Mephisto is not the biblical devil and
Mm-hmm.
does not claim to be.
Yep.
And I love that so much, because as an adult I recognized that what happened was somebody at Marvel said, we can't upset the Baptists. We can't have a devil on this card without explaining that he's just a generic superhero bad guy, and he's not the devil, even though he's totally the biblical devil in the comics, right? So anyway, I liked it. I liked the second half of it a lot more than I liked the first half of it. But how do you argue with a show that gives you the greatness of it was Agatha all along, right?
Right.
Like I just played that for months. And anytime anybody in my house was like, "Hey, what happened? What went wrong?" I'd be like, just start shouting, "It was Agatha all along." So yeah, thought it was great.
Okay. Well, then we follow that one up with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I like their dynamic back in, what was it, Civil War?
Yeah.
That not bad. It wasn't like the running team that I thought I would team Falcon up with,
Yeah.
but I thought it was okay. It wasn't what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
yeah.
I'm just.
It didn't work for me. I mean, I'll just it's probably the thing Marvel released last year that I don't know that I'll ever go back and watch again. It just doesn't, on a lot of different levels. Other than Sam becoming Captain America, which is great. And I enjoyed all of that, including the sort of like emotional ringer he goes through. It's like, because Bucky says at one point, Steve and I didn't understand, because we're white guys from the 1940s, what it would mean for a black American to be handed that shield and be handed the responsibility of being Captain America. And and that's the thing that, like, I remember when Black Panther came out, and black Americans were just overjoyed, to see themselves represented on screen. And it's something that you and I probably take for granted, because I'm a white dude and I've seen myself on screen my whole life, right? And so that aspect of the show is pretty much untouchable. It was good, but I think most of the show was just, it just didn't do it for me. And because the plot didn't make any sense, and Sam, like the villain, and I know I just did this whole rant about how Spider-Man saves people, but the villain in this piece was like a young woman who's a terrorist who like blew up something and killed a bunch of people. And Sam spends the whole movie trying to like redeem her or save her or something, and like it just didn't. Like, no, just arrest her. Like, okay, you don't have to kill her, but it's time to like put her in prison. She killed a bunch of people, right? And the stuff with Baron Zemo, I like Baron Zemo.
Yep,
but
I liked him.
But they making Bucky and Sam break him out of jail or out of prison was dumb. It was just it was a bad way to do that. Like, he should have broken himself out of prison. Someone else breaks him out of prison. But to have your heroes break him out of prison and then, basically lose track of him a bunch of times so that he can go off and create more chaos and mayhem, like, oh, no. that didn't fly for me either. Um,
What about Sharon Carter? Because I wrote down that of the show, I liked where they went with her character,
yeah,
and I'm interested to see like, especially at the end with the end credits with Sharon making the phone call. Like, I would love for her to be working with the sister from Shang Chi. Like, maybe they're in stuff together. Um, I'd like to see what's going on.
you know, I I actually thought that was okay. That was the one part that everybody was mad about that I was fine with. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, you can't make her a villain, and I was like, well why not? Well,
She was abandoned,
wouldn't that
essentially.
be interesting if she, and I guess probably, we're going to scroll this up, right? Like she's going to end up being a scroll, and the real Sharon Carter is noble and virtuous and off somewhere being a hero, and Sam just found the scroll Sharon instead of the real one, right? But I hope not. I think it's way more interesting that that she gets abandoned essentially. Steve goes back in time and marries Peggy, and none of the superheroes, because they're all egotistical jerks, right? Like, think about her. Like, she comes and saves them and helps them, and then all the heroes are like, yeah, it was great, thanks Sharon, see you later. And you're gonna you and I are the only ones that are gonna get this reference, okay? But in Babylon 5, where the Lita Alexander, the telepath,
Hmm.
in like season 4 of that show, which everyone should watch Babylon 5, and if you've seen it already, watch it again. But she basically is a character who's heroic and saves everybody and uses her powers to like fight off all the bad guys. And then the next season, she's basically abandoned by the heroes and somewhat becomes a villain. And like everything she does is believable because it's very much like, you guys just left me out to dry.
Yep.
And I think the same thing with Sharon Carter. It's like, I think that's way more interesting than, no, actually, she's a Skrull. No, actually, and I think that, and the other thing is that, like, the Marvel movies sort of hint, well, they do more than hint. They lay this in pretty strongly. But a lot of the Marvel characters in the MCU are basically just killers, right? Like
Right.
Black Widow and Hawkeye and the Winter Soldier and even Steve Rogers. I would say that Steve is a he fought in World War II. It's a different thing than being a
Yeah.
straight up like assassin, CIA agent kind of black ops character. You know what I mean? Like he is not that. He's not Black Widow. He's not Hawkeye. But for a character like Sharon Carter, who comes from the world of like super spies, where theoretically she kills people because the government says you got to kill that person, even because they're bad or they're against our interests or whatever. I absolutely can see a character like that going, you know what? I think I'm cashing out, and I think my government is evil, and because I think my government is evil, I'm justified in being a gun runner or a drug smuggler or whatever she is.
Hmm.
So I think it'd be great.
I just
I thought the show. The biggest complaint I have about this show, and again, I'm not a filmmaker and I'm not a TV guy, producer, or whatever. Call me Marvel, we'll do something, right? But like, my biggest complaint is there's a speech that Captain America gives in the last episode, and it's trying so hard to do something, and I have no idea what it's trying to do. I have no idea what Sam's trying to say. I have no idea what he's trying to convey. It was clearly written to try not to offend anyone. And it's so painfully obvious that we're trying to write a hero speech about terrorism, and we were scared to say anything. Did you feel that way?
I have to be honest. that it's been so long
You
that
don't
I
even
remember,
that,
like
huh?
I remember the speech, but I don't remember like what he was going for.
Well, that's my point.
It didn't. And honest to goodness, the only thing that I remember that stands out, on a few things, but the key one is the fight where it's like John Rogers, or John, whatever his name is, whoever, the fake Captain America and his buddy, and then there's Bucky and Sam, and then the Dora Malays show up, and take out Bucky's arm essentially, and that's like the one moment that sticks with me.
Yeah,
And
that was cool.
I
I remember that.
and I remember people being pissed off about it. And it's like they gifted that arm to him. I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing to take it away.
Yeah, they absolutely are the kind of people who would give you a bionic arm, but not without a failsafe that if they decided that they were not happy with you, they could not just take it away instantly, right? Like
Exactly.
that is Wakanda in a nutshell. You know what I mean? Like that makes perfect sense to me. And that's the way anybody who is like super powerful and techie and whatever. You don't think that Tony Stark can turn off the War Machine armor with like a snap of his fingers? I promise you, Tony Stark can like, the wrong person's in the War Machine armor. Well, better pull the plug on that, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, that's just the way any of those characters should be if they have any sense.
All right, so Falcon Winter Soldier gives way to Loki, which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
I like Sylvie.
Yeah.
I dug Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
I liked when they got to meet the other variant Lokis. I think it was fun. I like that it set up like again the multiverse by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Curious to see where it goes, but I don't think like if we're rating all of them, we haven't gotten to my favorite so far.
I really liked this show. I really liked the last episode. The last episode was really divisive. I loved it. I think if you're gonna have a show where characters often sit in a room and talk about the multiverse and what it means, you had better cast Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and Jonathan Majors and Sophia DiMartino, because those characters could sit in a room and argue with one another, and it was totally watchable. I was I'll watch this. I'll do another 30 minutes. Oh, the only problem I have with this show is that I didn't get Owen Wilson on a jet ski, man. And if season 2 of Loki doesn't open with Owen Wilson on a jet ski, what are we even doing here, right? Like, oh my God, give the man his jet ski. I really dug it. You got, for comic book geek like me, to get the Loki variants, which included classic Loki as played by God Richard Grant. Just I love it. The show also, every episode I felt like I knew what this show was, and then the next episode would come out and I was like, I have no idea what the show is. Like, the first episode sets up the idea the show is going to be Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, buddy time cops.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's what we're going to do for 6 episodes. And you're like, all right, cool, I'm down. Buddy time cops. And then it almost immediately like, nah, we're not doing it. We're just fooling you. We're going to do, it's going to be Loki and Loki hanging out, and which they do for an episode or 2. And then they're like, no, actually, now we got to explain the multiverse. And we pulled in Jonathan Majors, and he's playing Kang, which I swear to you, like every reviewer said, yeah, they're hinting at Kang, but there's no way Kang is going to show up in that last episode. It's going to be a Loki variant or something, because what else could it be? And then Marvel was like, no, yeah, we think now's a great time. Here's Kang, and God bless him. You know what I mean? It's the opposite of WandaVision, where I was like, oh, I'm going to get Mr. Fantastic. And this one was like, oh, well, they're never going to give me Kang. Why would they do that? And then they're like, yeah, actually, here you go. Here you go. Here's Kang for 30 minutes explaining the next 5 years of Marvel movies. Enjoy. You know? Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, it's definitely, and I was honestly surprised at the end when they said that there's going to be a season 2 of Loki, because at that time, you know, they had said nothing for WandaVision. Falcon Winter Soldier is spinning off into like the future Captain America movie. So I was really surprised that they were going to do like another Loki series, but I'm not going to say no to it.
No, I'm fine with that. Let's do some more. You know, if I get Owen Wilson being awesome, you know, I'm down. I will say that although I want to say this show suffered from like not having a pretty satisfying conclusion, but this show did have, like, this show's theme was Loki can't trust himself, right? Loki always makes the wrong choice, and you know, great fiction is like the human heart in conflict with itself. So for the last episode to be Tom Hiddleston, Loki, and Sylvie, who is Loki, fighting with one another, you know, the human heart really literally in conflict with itself. I thought, well, that's brilliant. You know, that is a great conclusion to, you know, he wants, because he's crazy or narcissistic, he wants to love her, and she you know, feels whatever she feels for him, and it's weird, and it's Loki, and it's all strange, but they can't make it. Those crazy kids can't make it work, right? Like it's perfect. I liked it.
Well, then we go from live action to the animated side of things with the What If series. I'm just going to throw out the 3 that I loved, which was T'Challa as Star-Lord, Captain Carter, and then Killmonger saving Tony Stark. But I'm going to go back to T'Challa as Star-Lord because it's the last thing that Chadwick Boseman recorded as Black Panther. And dang if I didn't love T'Challa as Star-Lord. And it just makes... It's a lot of fun, and then it makes fun of Chris Pratt's, you know, Star-Lord, as some guy just working at a fast food place. Loved it. I absolutely loved T'Challa as Star-Lord.
I thought that was maybe the strongest episode, and because of a lot of different things, including the fact that the real life tragic circumstances around it. I really first of all, this show has got to be the darkest cartoon ever made, right? Like the Doctor Strange episode ends
Oh my gosh.
with him destroying his universe because he loses his girlfriend, right? And he becomes evil Doctor Strange, who we're going to apparently get in Multiverse of Madness. The zombies episode is dark as crap, all the way through. The Killmonger episode is super dark. So we only get like of all of these. And then, of course, there's a 2-part finale, which everything wraps up and all the characters sort of come together. The only other one that was like, other than the T'Challa episode, and I suppose the Captain Carter episode, the only other one that was like positive was What If Thor Were an Only Child, right?
Oh my gosh, that one I could not, like, I watched it and I was like, this is ridiculous.
That wasn't for you, huh? I thought that was pretty fun. Of course, I think maybe all the heroes die in that one. Does Loki take over at the end of that one?
Yeah, there's like a whole... I think Loki's army like shows up at the end, and then it's like going into that.
And then Like, what in the world? When I watched the third episode, which basically all the Avengers get killed,
Yep.
they get killed by a serial killer. And when I figured out who the serial killer was, which was like, again, much later than it should have been, but like I figured it out, you know what I mean? But I was like, oh, it's gonna be oh wow. They really went for it. So like this and again, I love Marvel and the MCU because these what ifs are like they're not like straight adaptations of the comics of the what if
Right.
comic, but the tone of the what if comic is very much in this show because the tone of the what if comic was always like and then everybody died, right?
Yep.
Because they could because it was a what if, they could kill everybody off, and they often did because it was, there was a lot of freedom in that, I suppose. And so the tone of the show was very close to the tone of the comic. And so I ended up really liking the show, but I had a hard time because I am very much I want all my superheroes to be happy at the end, to have overcome tragedy and be happy at the end of the episode or the end of the show or whatever. And this is not that, or it's not that for most of it. And then the last two episodes are like, we're going to assemble a team and stop Ultron, Super Ultron or whatever he is. Thanos Tron, um, and so I dug it, and I will watch a second season of it, which I think we're getting.
We are, yeah, because they had to cancel or push back the episode that has Gamora and Cosmic Tony Stark to the next one because they couldn't finish it in time.
Yeah, so I thought this was cool. I'd be interested in a different animated the other thing that I thought was so fascinating about this show was that all of the what ifs are MCU what ifs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. They are taken from the MCU, and then we've done a cartoon about some pivotal moment in the MCU, not like a pivotal moment. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? And everybody kind of looks like the MCU version of themselves, and they're played most of the time by the actors, I guess, or a lot of the time. And so, really, really well done. And I thought it was pretty good. I don't know that it's on the level of the live action stuff. In the same way that, like, if you ever bought the What If comic for any period of time, you'd often like this issue is amazing. Like, that's the one Frank Miller decides to do,
Mm-hmm.
and then you buy 3 or 4 more and you'd be like, oh, why am I still buying this?
Yeah.
There's some of that here where like there are really high points, and then there's an episode where you're just like, just like you bounced right off of What If Thor Were an Only Child, some of these I was just like, yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, I think and I had a discussion with somebody else that at times it felt like they rushed through the episode and didn't give it enough, like even just a minute or two more of whether it's breathing space or a little bit more exposition or something to just let it sit. But
yeah, I could see that. I could see that it was, and I mean, my gosh, you have to have an almost encyclopedic knowledge, which of course I do, or most of the time I do, of all the moments in the MCU, right? To get a lot of these episodes. Like, you can't be a casual fan, I don't think, and just check into this. You may be lost. But we got Disney Plus, so the casuals, can either catch up or go do something else, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we were gifted with our Thanksgiving/Christmas present of Hawkeye. Again, it was a show where I was like, of all the people you're going to give a show to, you're going to give it to Hawkeye, like, because
how dare you, sir? How dare you?
You just, like, I love Hawkeye from the comics,
right?
And the Hawkeye that I got for the MCU with Jeremy Renner, who does fantastic acting work, outside of the MCU because he never was given much to do
No.
within the movies that he's
Yeah.
in. Out of all the shows that they did, this is the one where I think I laughed the most. I really just had a smile on my face the whole time because he's just trying to get home to his family for Christmas.
Right.
Like, that's all he wants to do. And then to add in the Yelena and Kate dynamic of, like, just absolutely love them both together.
Mm-hmm.
And then bringing in Kingpin from the Netflix Daredevil series to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I loved all the characters. I loved the bad guys, the Tracksuit Mafia. I loved Echo. I loved all of them. Like, this show was my favorite.
So did you read the Matt Fraction David Hawkeye comic?
No, but I've heard so many good things.
So when I can distinctly remember, like, this thing came out in 2012. The Avengers had come out, I think, at the same time. And this comic was a lot of the elements, especially the visual style of the, like, credits and stuff. But the plot points, a lot of that stuff ended up in this show. And I distinctly remember reading that comic and being like, this is going to be an amazing television show or an amazing Hawkeye movie someday. Because every episode, every issue is so strong. There's an issue. First of all, there's an issue of that comic from the dog's perspective, from Pizza Dog. There's a whole issue. It's just the dog. There's a whole issue where Tony Stark comes over and fixes Clint Barton's TV audio-visual setup. Like, your TV's terrible. We got to fix this. And then there's all of the stuff with the Tracksuit Mafia, all of the stuff. And it really is one of my favorite comic runs of all time. And it's beautiful because David Aja is an amazing artist. And when we got to Civil War and they were like, oh, by the way, Hawkeye's married and he's got kids, I literally, like, almost shouted in the theater, no, because he's single in the comic. And there's a lot of stuff that happens in the comic because he's like divorced. You know, he's been married to Bobby and divorced, and all his ex-girlfriends are superheroes, and Kate's around, and she's like, this guy's this guy's should be my hero, but he's also like a loser in his personal life.
Right.
And so we get the show and it gets announced, and I'm like, wait, it's gonna have the Tracksuit Mafia in it. It's gonna do this. It's gonna be him and Kate. I was just flabbergasted. The show is really good. I'm sorry, I'm a comic guy, so it doesn't. People should go read the comic because I really just can't stress that enough. They should read comics anyway, but they should go read this one in particular. For a lot of different reasons, it doesn't hit like the super highs of that comic. But any television show where my two Archer characters, one of them shoots an arrow into the sky and the other one hits it with a Hank Pym, growing capsule and turns it into a giant arrow that lands on the bad guys. I mean, how can you, my God, how can you argue with that? I mean, it's great. I thought the characterization of Kate was amazing.
Yep.
They give us a character who has sort of a tragic backstory, but she's not Batman, right? And she's not the Punisher, and she's not informed by that. What she's informed by was, I was a kid and I had a bad day, and I saw you doing everything you could to help people and save people, and I want to be like you, right? Like, that's an amazing, awesome origin story for a second generation superhero, which is what she is. They're both Hawkeye, which is cool. The comics did that. and and you know, she's the next generation, and it does such a great job of introducing her, making you fall in love with her character, and then on top of that, it gives you her and Yelena, Black Widow, the second generation, hanging out and having this neat, weird relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You get Echo, which I thought was handled really well. Even if the conclusion of her, I think this show, I think there's a decent argument people that make that the show tried to do too much and couldn't quite handle having a whole Echo storyline, a whole Hawkeye storyline, a whole Kate Bishop storyline.
Mm-hmm.
But again, these shows we get to get what we can't get from the movie, because the movie's 2.5 hours long, and I got to serve 7 characters, and so Hawkeye gets a couple of lines every movie, right? And Wanda gets a couple of lines every movie, and that's it. I gotta go. I gotta move. I gotta, stuff's gotta blow up. I gotta get to the climax. And so these TV shows give us like, no, let's hang out. Let's just hang out with Clint at a Ren fair.
Yep.
For a good 20 or 30 minutes. Like, how badly did you not know that you wanted to just hang out with Clint Barton and his nerdy friends, new friends at the Ren fair, right? Like, I didn't know I wanted that, but I so wanted that, right? How bad did I want to see the Kingpin in a Hawaiian shirt? Like, I didn't know I needed that, but I did, I'm down. So, and I mean, it sets up stuff, but it doesn't exist to, like, now, as some of these projects do, like now, like Loki does. Now I'm going to set up, entire concepts that you're going to need to know. This show is just like, no, we're gonna hang out with our buddies, for 6 or 7 episodes or however long it was, and then we're gonna do the climax, or the after credit scene in the last episode, and it's a Christmas present from us to you. Here is the Rogers the Musical. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
And you get the whole song, the one clearly main song of that musical. And I just adored it. And I got to work. My buddy, who was like super, super excited about everything, he was furious. He's like, they didn't set anything up. How dare they? And I was like, you got to relax, just love this thing for what it is. It's Christmas, man, and they gave you a cute little Christmas present. You get to play this for your kids someday, who won't get it, but make them watch 40 hours of Marvel entertainment, and then play this for them. Be like, Merry Christmas, this is what you get, So yeah, I thought it was really good. Which has been my general answer all night, right? Like, pretty good to really good, right?
Yeah.
I do think that it took on a little bit too much, but I don't know that if it cut a plot line, would I have been any happier? If it cut out the Kingpin, or if it cut out the Echo Kingpin confrontation, or if it just sort of set that up and let that play out in her, and I'm sure it will, because Kingpin's not dead, you fools. You didn't see him get killed.
That's right.
So I thought it was, I was happy when all was said and done. I will say that I think we only got maybe 2 really great action set pieces, like the second episode and either the last episode or the next to last episode. Those were the only episodes of the whole series where it was like, this action sequence was amazing, and I'm glad we got it, and we got a Hawkeye version of it. But the show gave me him at the Ren Fair. It gave me him and her hanging out on just basically hanging out in the apartment for a
Yep.
day or whatever. Like I love that, and you can only get that with a television show. A movie really can't do it for a lot of reasons,
Exactly.
and shouldn't. I mean, if I'm going to spend 2.5 hours in a movie, and you spend 30 minutes at a Ren fair with Hawkeye, I'm probably going to want my money back, right? But at a TV show that I'm not watching it for free because I'm giving Disney $15 a month or whatever it is. But what is essentially like free, like, all right, I'm down.
Exactly. So now we have 2022. Again, this episode releases 2 days before Moon Knight, which, shock upon shock, I like, out of all the people, I was not expecting Moon Knight to be the first one coming out of the gate. But we got Moon Knight, we got Miss Marvel, we've got She-Hulk, we've got an I Am Groot, but that's up in the air as far as like.
So like,
whether
I think
it's
that's a cartoon, right? Isn't it?
It's a cartoon, and somebody said that they don't even that they think it's going to be like a short. It's not even going to be like a full TV series.
That seems like a hard character to build a show around.
Yeah, and then there's
unless it's
Guardians.
the Rocket Raccoon show, and Groot's in it, right?
Yeah, and then we got the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. Those are the shows that are officially announced, because there's been some movement of announcements and dates and stuff that people posted, and then they said no, there's no way it can happen this year. It's too much, too much for Disney to put out, overlapping with Star Wars stuff that they want to be putting out too. But Moon Knight, the trailer dropped, and I was really surprised because it's we're talking dark, and Moon Knight is not one of those characters that's just like happy go lucky. Let's get to know him.
No, he is a person suffering from multiple personality disorder, and one of his multiple personalities happens to be the somewhat insane superhero Moon Knight, right? Like, who is given his powers by the Egyptian god Khonshu. And my favorite joke in the comics community right now is, where the heck did all these Moon Knight fans come from? Like, all these people who suddenly stand Moon Knight, and there have been great to good to bad Moon Knight comics for 20, 30 years. Like, and I read, there was one version of Moon Knight as where he was the lead character that I read. Warren Ellis wrote it. Declan Shelby was the artist. It was really, really good. And I think they, after that creative team left, I left with the creative team. And I think somebody else did a Moon Knight comic, in the late 2000s, 2010s, whatever. And that's it for like 20 years, right? Like, no one at Marvel is like standing this character who is and has always been Marvel's Batman, like, and but the trailer looks good. I'm sure the show will be pretty good. I'm a little worried because in the trailer I can see how a good, smart TV producer would get around having to show you action sequences, because instead of having the action sequence, you'll have him wake up in the version of his multiple personality that you're following, and all the bad guys will just be lying on the ground bloody. Right? Like, did you get that? Did you get that vibe? Because I definitely
I got that vibe.
I definitely was like, oh, it's gonna be like a Hawkeye situation, or like even like a Iron Fist situation, where we need to hide some things, and so we're not going to show you the action sequence. Camera's going to be mysteriously pointed this way when the stuff goes down. But I don't know. Marvel's pretty good at this, and they're getting better as they go on at this TV thing. So I've liked what I've seen so far, but I have some reservations, and And again, I'm just giddy. You know what I mean? Like a Moon Knight TV show, like even 10 years ago, even as the MCU started taking off, if you'd leaned over to me and whispered, Brady, in 2022, there's going to be a Moon Knight TV show, and there's going to be a She-Hulk show, and there's going to be, a Miss Marvel show or whatever, which was a character I didn't even know existed 10 years ago, but regardless. And I would have punched you in the nose for getting my hopes up. Like what crazy world are we living in, right? Where all this stuff, all this awesome Marvel characters get time to shine. So we'll just we'll wait and see.
Well, what's interesting is that when Netflix had like the street level New York group, right?
Yeah.
Like they always come up in conversation. Who else should get the street level treatment? Was Shang Chi, Moon Knight, and She-Hulk. They like those were the three that were always floated of they should be getting Netflix shows for them. And so for Shang-Chi to get the movie,
Yeah.
but then also Moon Knight and She-Hulk like getting the show. Like I hope we get crossovers again with some of the Daredevil or Jessica Jones or somebody, especially with the She-Hulk series.
I mean, and again, I don't. Who knows what the terms of the contracts of these poor actors are, and all these folks. But if there's not a whole episode or even multiple episodes of the She-Hulk show where she faces off in court with Matt Murdock, what are we even doing? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like what world? Why would you not do that? And for the icing on the cake, she faces off with Matt Murdock in the courtroom, and they have a fight about it as their alter egos, in the street, right? Like, I mean, She-Hulk would probably flatten Daredevil pretty quickly, but he's stick and move, Matt. Do something. So there are plenty of ways to reincorporate those Netflix. I'm not as high on those Netflix shows as other people are.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the first season of Daredevil was good. I know everybody loves the Punisher from those shows, and John Barenthal is really, really good, but he cried way too much for me in his show. And he banged on walls with a hammer because he was emotionally distraught or whatever. And like, I just didn't do it for me. And I'm probably going to get yelled at by a lot of people, but that's okay. And like, I really, really, really like Iron Fist, and that they did not do well by my boy Danny Rand. Let me just say. Right. And I don't know. It's not anybody's fault. Sometimes these things don't work. It just whatever. It just didn't happen. And I thought the Luke Cage show was I thought the first season of Daredevil and the first season of Luke Cage and the first season of Jessica Jones were all really strong. But I thought as it went on, it had diminishing returns. I thought that Defenders show should have been just mind blowing, and it was not good. So, yeah. When you say I'm a Marvel fan, I guess, and who loves everything, I guess my argument would be, well, I actually kind of didn't like, most of the Marvel Netflix shows. So make of that what you will. Except for, and I mean, I gave up on the second season of Punisher. Like someday I need to go back and watch it just because I never
even watched it.
Yeah. So, but so I'm not worried about burnout. I think the people who are gonna get burned out by this stuff have been burned out. And in fact, my my wife and my sister-in-law, who have watched a lot of this stuff over the years, they've mostly tuned out, after Endgame. I think, they've watched some of it, but I think in a lot of ways they were like, well, I got to Endgame and I don't need, 40 hours of Marvel content. They watched Loki, and I think they liked Loki. and I want to say that I made them watch WandaVision, but I can't get them to watch Black Widow or Hawkeye, and I can't get them to watch. I'm not sure they watch Shang Chi, even though like they'd like Shang Chi if they'd watch it. So, and that's again, it's like how we started this thing, right? Like that's fine. If you're done, it's okay. Nobody's going to judge you if you decide you're out. I do have coworkers who like occasionally I come to work and I'm like I'm catching up with all the MCU, and it's like okay, I'll try not to spoil stuff, while you're 5 movies behind or whatever it is, while you're half a decade behind the rest of us,
Right.
So, I worry that they've overextended themselves, and how much of this stuff can be good and sustainable. And like the Star Wars has the same kind of issue. Not to go off on a whole different podcast, but like everybody's complaining to me about Book of Boba Fett. Like I don't know if you're watching it, but like people are like, it's not what they wanted in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
And you just like, well, guys, can't all be winners. like these people give you like hours and hours of entertainment, and you watch it on your for your $15 a month TV service, and doesn't always work. I'm sure that like I'm hope everything that Marvel produces this year, in 2022 is like A+, but history shows that some of them just ain't just going to be stinkers. They're just not going to work for whatever reason, or they're not going to work for you. They're going to be somebody else's favorite show of all time, and
Right.
for you, they're going to be like, I thought every choice they made here was wrong. So, but I am, I love that I live in a world where, 10 Marvel movie TV projects are going to come out this year and next year and the year after.
Yep.
Like I can't believe, as a childhood comic book fan, that I live in a world where I get this, and I live in a world where I get a Peacemaker of all things TV show on HBO Max, and a new Batman film, and all this other cool comic book stuff, some of which I will love and some of which I will loathe, and that's okay. We get to sort of live in this weird timeline, and in our version of the MCU, and I really enjoy it.
All right, I got a last question for you, which is, we know like what's on the horizon. We know Blade, Fantastic Four, X-Men, they're all coming. Mm-hmm. We know that there's Secret Invasion. We know that there's the Armor Wars coming as like shows, and they're setting up for like the Young Avengers, and they're setting up for like maybe like a Thunderbolts or a Dark Avengers. Like we got a whole bunch of stuff being set up. What's a team? What's a character? What's something that hasn't been announced that you want to see? Like, what would you love to see, either movie or TV?
Okay, that hasn't been announced.
Yeah, that hasn't. Like,
well, like they haven't officially announced a Fantastic Four movie. So do I?
They've announced.
Oh, they've announced that. I have to come up with a Marvel thing.
A Marvel thing
that has not Forbish Man. No, you don't even know what that is, but that's like a joke. It's from their jokey comics. Spider-Ham, the movie. Like it could work. I mean, okay. So the thing that I would be most excited about, I think, if they announced it, would be a Spider-Man movie, and they announced there's going to be a Miles Morales in it, which I would say fits your criteria of thing that hasn't been announced. They've announced some Spider-Man movies, but they haven't announced a live action Miles Morales, Spider-Man thing.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I mean, I'd have to. It'd be great if they did the X-Men justice. I think the X-Men stuff was good that we got. The first two movies, at least, and then the rest of it was all rough. Man, you really got me, David. Because they had. I will say, I mean, I guess we're getting a She-Hulk show. I would love an adaptation of a comic called Immortal Hulk.
Okay.
Which would basically cast the Hulk as more of a horror character. And the Hulk shows up each issue and, saves some people and punishes bad people, but he is a true monster as opposed to a superhero in that comic. In the sort of Frankenstein tradition of the monster. And there's a lot of weird religious things going on in that. I'd love, Peter David, when I was a kid, was writing the Hulk, and he did Professor Hulk, which is what they call him. It's not what he called him in the comic, but the smart Hulk that we have now, that Ruffalo plays. I'd love a cool Mark Ruffalo Smart Hulk movie. The Hulk is maybe my favorite character. And so we got a lot of the Hulk. I mean, I can't argue with what we got, but I sure would have loved a Mark Ruffalo Hulk standalone, whatever, or more, or even you can't call it the Hulk, but another Thor Ragnarok situation where the Hulk teams up with whomever. One of the things that the X-Men comic succeeded at was that the women of the X-Men comic, Storm and Jean Grey, and they were in a lot of ways, they were the main characters of the Chris Claremont run. I mean, obviously Wolverine was there, and Rogue is another one. But the women characters in the X-Men comic were sort of front and center for the whole run. And I would love for, if we're going to reboot the X-Men, for that to be the take. Because I don't really think that the Fox X-Men movies, those were always kind of Wolverine and his friends movies.
Yeah. Yep.
And then they did the prequel movies without Wolverine, and those were like Mystique movies for some reason, because she had become, the actress had become a superstar, and they had her under contract, and so they're like, well, these movies are about Mystique now.
Yep.
And so I would love some like Storm, Rogue, Kitty Pryde, Jubilee goodness. I think that would be closer to the spirit of what the comic was, and part of what made the comic really take off. I mean, again, Dave, we live in a world where we've gotten like a Luke Cage TV show. It's hard for me to like, and an Iron Fist TV show, and Moon Knight's got a TV show. I'm looking at my just mountain of Marvel comics, and I can't think of a character that's left that they don't have plans for. And the minute we get done, we wrap this up and I go to bed because it's late. I'm going to lay in bed tonight and be like, oh, but I love this character. I love this thing. And I can't believe that wasn't my answer, but I really just don't have a like super great answer other than, and I know it's been announced, that I'm just like, when Disney bought was it Fox? When Disney bought Fox, and everybody was screaming about, "Oh my God, we can't let Disney buy Fox." My initial gut reaction to that was, "Oh, thank God, I may finally get a good Fantastic Four movie." You know, like yes, I know that like consolidation is bad, and one corporation owning everything is bad, and like Disney owns Star Wars and Marvel, and that's maybe not great, you know. But oh, if I get a good Fantastic Four movie out of all this, you know, it will have been worth it, you know. For
Exactly.
me at least, you know, because I really want to see that.
Yep.
You know, I almost said Doctor Strange, forgetting that, you know, that we got a Doctor Strange movie, David, and it was really close to the Doctor Strange of the comics, and we're getting more of it. You know, you know, I get okay. Here, I have one, two, and they're probably coming. And in fact, it's already been announced that he's coming to the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie. But an Adam Warlock movie, an Adam Warlock story, Silver Surfer movie, a Silver Surfer story that takes those characters close from what they were in the comics and does cool things with them. Quasar, I think, would be interesting. But I think we're going to, if we get Adam Warlock and we get the Silver Surfer, we're going to reach a level where a lot of these characters have the same powers and are essentially the same.
Yep.
The same type of thing. They just came along in different decades. You know, we had Captain Marvel, and we had Silver Surfer, I guess, first, and then we had started getting these other sort of cosmic characters that were kind of space superheroes, but they were always like super powerful, right? Like the Silver Surfer is like so incredibly overpowered, but somebody could do a great movie with Silver Surfer. You know, starting with him being Norrin Rad and having to sacrifice himself to save his planet, right? And those Adam Warlock comics, I've never. Adam Warlock was a little before my time. He exists for me as a character in the Infinity Gauntlet. He shows up. He has the Doctor Strange role in the Infinity Gauntlet to the point where he's the one who nods at somebody and tells them to get the gauntlet from Thanos, which is what Doctor Strange does at the end of Endgame to Tony. He's like, "Well, it's your time, Tony." You know, Adam Warlock actually plays that role in the comics. But the other comics, what I've seen and read of them, are incredibly strange. Like he fights Thanos a bunch, but he fights like an evil version of himself from the future, I think. Which of us hasn't? Obviously, I mean that's a problem we all have. But I would, you know, and I guess they're headed that way because it has been announced that there's going to be an Adam Warlock in this third Guardians movie. And I get the impression that James will wrap up Guardians and maybe try and convince Marvel to let him Adam Warlock it up, you know, for a TV show or a movie or something. We're getting Namor, you know, like I assume, you know, that we're getting Namor and that eventually he'll get his own standalone something. You know, so I mean, I'm like literally looking at a poster of like a ton of like Marvel characters as drawn by Michael Golden, and all of them. Okay, here's who's left. All right, because this has like maybe 30 characters on it. All right, and these are the people that aren't in TV shows. There is Captain Universe, who you've never heard of. There is, I was gonna say she's the cat person, but she was actually in Jessica Jones, the cat superhero.
Oh, Hellcat, yeah.
Hellcat, okay. But she was in Jessica Jones. Kazar, who is like Marvel's Tarzan. Okay, which honestly, I'd love it. Let's do a Kazar. Let's do it, man. There is Spider-Woman is up here. I don't think they've done Spider-Woman.
Nope.
And they're probably not gonna. So in this poster with 50 characters, the only other one that hasn't been done, hasn't shown up in one form or another, either in the MCU or in the X-Men films, is, and they absolutely, I will give them, I will go see this twice. I promise you, Marvel, if you make this movie, I'm down. All right, is Man-Thing. And the greatest, as you know, which is Swamp Thing, Marvel's version of Swamp Thing, in case your listeners don't know, and they should feel bad if they don't know that Man-Thing is a Marvel superhero, but he's a lot like Swamp Thing. And the greatest comic book title of all time. Don't let anybody tell you any different. This is true. This is a true comic, and they did more than one of these. Giant size Man-Thing. So, you can't argue with a comic called Giant Size Man-Thing. The only thing you can do is put your money down and buy that comic. That is your only option. And honestly, I'm sure Kevin Feige has a script on his desk right now from somebody. All right, so Kevin, if you're listening, I know you have that script for Giant Size Man-Thing on your desk. Greenlight it. Make that movie. The world needs it. I need it. Let's make it happen.
All right. Now, we've been talking for a long time, Brady. You have been a guest on many an episode of Tales from the Fandom, covering all sorts of stuff. Is there any place people can go to check out you, check out your work, follow you out there on the internet?
I'm a verified Twitter user, so you can follow me on Twitter at Brady Calhoun. And that's about it, man. I'm living a quiet life.
Okay.
So
I'll make sure that the link is in there for your Twitter, and then all the previous episodes I'll be linking in the show notes as well, so that way you can take a listen, whether it's a Doctor Strange review, whether it's Girl Meets World, your initial episode about Babylon 5 and Star Trek and all sorts of other fandoms. But Brady, thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the 2 years of Marvel that we got going on.
David, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. As always, good to hear from you.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.